this is to end in fire, then we shall all burn together. Watch the flames climb high into the night, calling out fire.
Hey Soul Fam, hope you're all doing really well and welcome to a new video. So today I've got a little bit of it's kind of a requested video but also a little bit of a story time. I was just chatting with one of my Instagram followers. Parry234 has requested this video. We were just chatting after I did the 10-year challenge, which you can see in the highlights on my Instagram. If you go to @ishtarthemoon, it's in the highlights, 10-year challenge, and I just uploaded a bunch of pictures from 10 years ago and was kind of telling, you know, the story of what I was up to back then. That was when I'd been modeling already for about 4 years, but I'd just gone full time. And I was talking about how I had, in one of the videos, I was talking about how I had used law of attraction to basically change my body type and to lose, I'd lost, I think, maybe 2 dress sizes. So I'd gone from a size 10 to a size 6 using law of attraction. I just read The Secret. And yeah, managed to lose weight so that I could kind of, you know, start traveling internationally and sign with big agencies and stuff. So I'm just going to quickly just have a quick read of the messages that I was exchanging with her. She replied to the story and she goes, "Oh my God, I'm reading that right now. Do you still use the law of attraction?" And I replied with yes, but The Secret is very, very basic. It goes way deeper than that. And if you've been following me on Instagram, you'll see that I shared a screenshot from somebody else who actually was responding to one of my stories where I was talking about how your thoughts create your reality. I basically just shared a meme, and he replied to me advising me to read The Secret. So I kind of made a little bit of an example of him and kind of said, listen, hun, we're in the advanced class now. The Secret is sort of manifestation 101, but we're kind of gone way beyond that. The Secret is kind of a little bit 10 years ago. So if you do want to kind of, if you have read The Secret and you want to go deeper, I advise that you read the Kabbalion, which goes into the 7 Hermetic principles, although there's 8 lost principle as well, which I've talked about on my Instagram before, the Sacred Feminine, as Mark Passio teaches it. And if you've been following me for a while, you know that I've referred to the Hermetic principles or universal law as the real law of attraction, which you can watch that video. I'll put a link to it if you want to go deeper. But just in this video, I'm just going to talk about how I used the law of attraction at the start of my career about 10 years ago to change my body, and then how I used it in other ways throughout my career. So yeah, she says that she's reading The Secret right now and she's trying to figure out how to kind of make it work. She goes, I'm kind of scared to be disappointed. And then she also very nicely said, you don't look 33. And I said, thanks, hun. Aging is also a creation of the mind. Your cells regenerate every 7 years. So if you believe you're aging, you will. But if you don't, you won't. So I've also used the law of attraction and other kind of, you know, metaphysical and occult teachings to kind of delay the aging process. Obviously, lifestyle plays a factor, but as I'm going to explain, the number one important thing that you have to remember when you're trying to manifest things is that whether you believe something or whether you believe something's possible or not, you're right either way. So if you believe something's possible, then you can manifest it. If you believe it's not possible, then you won't be able to manifest it. So that's where lifestyle actually plays the most important factor when it comes to aging. But that's a different thing. I want to kind of, you know, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself right now. So then she responded with, it makes me happy that you use the law of attraction to get what you want. I'm happy that you have such a positive mindset because it motivates me towards such a mindset too. It gives me hope that I too can achieve whatever it is that I want to achieve. What I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to say is thank you. Yeah, honestly, hun, I never thought I was good enough to model, let alone travel the world and shoot with some of the top brands and creatives and bag a Vogue cover at 28 years old. But I just kept believing and never gave up. But it's by understanding universal law that I was able to do it, and it's the same for most of my friends who've been really successful as well, although some won't talk about it openly, which I understand. And then she asked, did you ever doubt yourself during the process? If you did, how did you get over those doubts? How did you convince yourself to keep going? I'm a singer and I'm still in college. As a singer, and I'm sure as a model too, we face a lot of rejection. How do you keep pushing through despite the rejections? Thank you so much for talking about this. You truly are an inspiration. So I said I'd do a YouTube video because I kind of... instead of just going back and forth with her, I thought it would be really useful for me to share with other people so you can all learn from it. So yes, did I ever doubt myself during the process? I did, yeah. But I also kind of knew when I first read The Secret, they did say, you know, whatever you believe, you can manifest. So if you believe that you can manifest an elephant in the middle of the room, you would be able to do it. But most people can't do that because they don't believe it. So I was just like, I don't have anything to lose by 100% believing that this is possible. But I did have to make certain lifestyle changes in order to bridge the gap between where I was and where I wanted to go, where I wanted to be. And now I'm going to go a little bit deeper here. I'm going to read you a declassified CIA document. I found this on one of my friends who I follow. In declassified, just bear with me 1 second. CIA document. Okay. Now this is a declassified CIA document, and this is super interesting. Okay, patterning. I'm reading this word for word. This technique involves use of the consciousness to achieve desired objectives in the physical, emotional, or intellectual sphere. It involves concentration on the desired objective while in a focus 12 state, extension of the individual's perception of that objective into the whole expanded consciousness, and its projection into the universe with the intention that the desired objective is already a matter of established achievement which is destined to be realized within the time frame specified. This particular methodology is based on the belief that the thought patterns generated by our consciousness in a state of expanded awareness create holograms, which represent the situation we desire to bring about, and in so doing establish the basis for actual realization of that goal. Once the thought-generated hologram of the sought-after objective is established in the universe, it becomes an aspect of reality which interacts with the universal hologram to bring about the desired objective, which might not, under other circumstances, ever occur. In other words, the technique of patterning recognizes the fact that since consciousness is the source of all reality, our thoughts have the power to influence the development of reality in time-space as it applies to us, if those thoughts can be projected with adequate intensity. However, and this is important, okay? However, the more complicated the objective sought and the more radically it departs from our current reality, the more time the universal hologram will need to reorient our reality sphere to accommodate our desires. Monroe trainers, so these are people who teach at the Monroe Institute. If you're not familiar with Robert Monroe's work, look him up. He taught before his death astral projection. Monroe trainers caution against attempting to force the pace of this process because the individual could succeed in dislocating his existing reality with drastic consequences. So just be careful what you wish for is what that last one is saying. So the thing is, it's much easier to manifest things that are not too dissimilar to our current reality. So, me dropping 2 dress sizes, for me, it wasn't something that was going to be, I didn't perceive it as being an impossible task because even though I was a sort of a UK size 10, which is a US size 6, which is, you know, a totally normal size, but for modeling in a major market like London, New York, Paris, markets like that, it's a little bit on the bigger side. It's kind of more, there are still models who are that size, but they'll be more like commercial lifestyle type models. But I wanted to kind of do fashion, and I wanted to be international, and I wanted to work in more competitive markets. So it was important for me to get down to the measurements that the top agencies require. Now, whether that's right or wrong, we could discuss the, you know, the morality of that in a separate video, and I do want to discuss it. And I have discussed it before as well in my video weighing in on the plus size model debate, which I'll link to. For me, it wasn't too much of a departure from where I was because I'd done it before. When I first started modelling, which was when I was at university, I was actually a size 6 because I was going through quite an intense bout of depression, which I've talked about in my vegan story. And that's why I started modelling. That's why I even had the confidence to model. I'd wanted to model as a teenager, but I'd always been too big. I was always like, you know, a UK 12 or something. So whenever I sent my pictures to agencies in London as a teenager, or I would go to like places where I knew they were going to be model scouts, like at the clothes show and, you know, things like that. But I never got scouted because I was just always too curvy, which is, you know, fair enough. That's not what they're looking for, or wasn't what they're looking for then. You know, now they have sort of the plus size category and things like that. But back then, you know, size 12 wasn't really what the industry was looking for. So I was always too big as a teenager. But after going through depression, I was just like, oh, I'm skinny enough to model now. Now, over the course of, you know, studying at university, I then gained the weight back, and I went back to my natural size, which was a 10 to 12. So I've always been naturally quite curvy. But I knew that it was possible for me to get down to the size, which is why when I wanted to try and manifest it in my mind, it wasn't that much of a jump. And this is really critical to understand, that when you're trying to manifest something, you have to believe that it's within the realm of possibility, which is where action comes in. This is what people don't realize when they're trying to manifest things using law of attraction. You can't just visualization is important, but you also have to visualize yourself being closing the gap between where you are now and where you want to be, if you get what I'm saying. So you want to manifest a house. How are you going to manifest a house if you don't have a job? Do you know what I mean? So you have to, you know, the action is necessary for you to go out and think, okay, you know, it is possible and I am going to get it, and all of that stuff. Talking too much right now. So yeah, so with using law of attraction to lose weight, I was doing constant affirmations in my head. You know, I stopped going to the gym. That was one of the things that I did, because for me it was taking too much time out of my day. It was also because I'd come from like a bodybuilding background. Firstly, it was making me too bulky and, you know, too much muscle mass and stuff like that. And third, it was actually kind of making me a little bit orthorexic and making me have quite a negative attitude towards my body. And it was also stimulating my appetite. So I stopped doing all of that. I kind of probably let the muscle the trophy, so I was able to kind of slim down. And again, whether that's healthy or not, people can debate if they want, but I had very specific goals. So I just started eating whatever I wanted. I'd been a really, really stringent, bordering on orthorexic eater when I was gymming and, you know, bodybuilding and all of that stuff. I was eating low GI and measuring all my macros and all of that stuff. And I just stopped doing all of that. I just started eating pastries. I was vegetarian, not vegan at the time. And I would just eat pastries and coffee and chocolate, whatever I wanted. And I just started saying over and over in my head, I'm just losing weight all the time. I'm just becoming so thin, and I can just see how much weight I'm losing. And it just naturally started to come off. Obviously, because I had decreased my calories as well, it just started to drop off. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I was eating loads and loads. I wasn't. I was eating minimally. I wasn't starving myself, but I was kind of practicing what I now understand to be intermittent fasting. And that was definitely helpful. Like, you know, I would just, throughout the day, I would run around going to castings, and I would just have like fruit or like a bar of chocolate to kind of keep me going through during the day. And then when I came home, I would eat something. As soon as I got home, it was usually like instant noodles or something. It wasn't the healthiest. And then I would have dinner with my family. Like my mum would make like a nice curry or something, and we would have that. Or at the weekends when I would go and stay with my boyfriend, my rule was, when I was with him, I would eat as much as I wanted, because I don't really like being around people who are eating. Eating is a very social thing for me. So if people are eating around me, I also want to eat. So I didn't want to deprive myself of you know, eating in social situations. But when I was by myself, I was quite happy to fast or just eat very like little, just to keep myself going. So I would say within maybe 6 months to a year, I had dropped down to a 6 from a 10. Also because I was young as well. I was 21 or 22, so your body kind of is just springs up and down, like, you know, very fast. Now that I'm a little bit older, it's a slower process. Once I saw that law of attraction was working really well for me in terms of changing my body type, I then started to use it to manifest things in my career. So we're fast forwarding a little bit now. I always believed that I was going to work internationally. I didn't just want to be one of those girls who just does a few hair jobs and does it like, you know, for a year or two and then goes and gets a real job. That's what a lot of the models that I was around were doing. You know, they would do it for a couple of years and then they would kind of go, okay, I can't really hack it because it's not the most consistent career. Sometimes you don't know where your next paycheck is coming from. But I didn't want to just do it for a year or two. Like, I wanted to travel the world and I wanted to be on the cover of magazines. I wanted to get big campaigns. I wanted to be on billboards. I wanted to get TV commercials. I wanted to do everything. I wanted to tick all the boxes and achieve, you know, I had certain milestones that I wanted to achieve in my career. I had a really amazing mentor when I first signed with the first agency. She was a model who was a little bit older than me. She was 29 at the time, and she was kind of wanting to settle down, and she just got engaged and she was kind of winding up her career. So she just passed on all her knowledge to me. She taught me everything that she knew. She had started a lot later. She'd started at 24. So even though I had just gone full time at 22, which is quite late in the industry, usually, you know, models will start around, well, in the big markets, they generally scout them around 13, 14. So if you're starting at 18, 19, that's late. Now, I was starting at 22. Well, I'd started at 19, but I'd gone full time at 22, which is I thought was late. And I was continually told by my bookers that I was, you know, starting a little bit late, and I would meet girls who'd been working since they were 15. I had hardly any pictures in my book. So this girl, Juliet Johns, I'm forever grateful to her, Juliet, if you're watching. Big love to you, big sis. Yeah, she told me how she kind of got ahead of the game, even though she started at 24, and she would email photographers every day, like 10 photographers a day. It's a numbers game, basically. So she kind of taught me how to do that. So I would go through magazines. This was before social media. I would go through magazines. I'd be sitting at castings in the waiting room, and while I'm waiting, I had my little notebook that I used to write down my castings in, because this is, again, before smartphones. And I would kind of go through the editorials and look at the credits and see who the photographers were. And I would write down the photographers' names. And then when I came home, I would go onto the photographer's website and I would send out 10 emails a day, sometimes 20 emails a day, with my Polaroids and maybe 1 or 2 of my best pictures from my portfolio. I didn't have many more than that because I'd only just started. And I asked them if they wanted to do a test shoot with me. And for every 10 photographers that I emailed, I would maybe get 1 test shoot. And so within a year, my portfolio looked the same as some of the girls who'd been modeling since they were 15. It was full. Like, I mean, but now everybody has iPads that they keep their portfolios on, but back then it was like a book with like plastic sleeves that the agency would give you, and they'd print your pictures and put the pictures in. And so my book was literally like front to back, it was full. And some of the girls who'd been modeling since they were like 13, 14, even their portfolios were not full. So I kind of really got ahead of the game just by believing that I was worthy and going out there and applying action. And this is really important to remember. There's nothing crazy metaphysical about law of attraction. I mean, it can be sometimes when things just kind of come to you, but you have to get into vibrational alignment for that thing, and doing that requires action. So I want to talk about how I was able to manifest my first Vogue cover, which is so far my only Vogue cover, but I'm going to get another one. I've already started visualizing it. I fully believed that it was possible for me. I wanted that because I decided that I wasn't going to consider that I'd been successful in this industry, because I see so many girls kind of coming and going, and they'll do it for a year or two and then they'll go, oh, I can't hack this, and then they quit and they go and do something else. So I was just like, no, I really want to kind of achieve the heights, see how far I can go with this. So for me, it was, I did doubt myself. So this is what Parry was asking. Did you ever doubt yourself? Like throughout this career, like I've been in this game now for like 14 years. I've done other things as well. Like it's not always just been modeling. I've done, I went to fashion college as well while I was, during quiet times. And for a while, I did a little bit of presenting. I've done some acting. I've taken breaks as well and gone traveling. So, there's always going to be times when you doubt yourself, because, 1 minute you'll be working every day, or you'll be working like 2 or 3 times a week, and you can barely catch your breath because you're so tired, and you're banking and making good money. And then there'll be other times when you're just not booking work at all, and you're just quiet and you just feel just washed up. And especially for modeling, for the kind of career that, they always say has, a sell by date, a best before date, you've got an expiry date. It's not actually true, because I know models in their 60s even who are still working, 70s even. But, you kind of have this. A lot of girls, they do kind of feel like they're running out of time, and they've got to achieve certain things till they get to a certain age, and then they'll get too old and they have to kind of quit. So yeah, of course it happens that we doubt ourselves. Even sometimes when you're busy. There have been times when I've been doing really super well and like booking loads of amazing big campaigns, and I've never felt more insecure, because when you've got a camera on you all the time and you're working with the best in the business, you do sometimes have a case of imposter syndrome. That's when it's even more important for you to practice law of attraction and just constantly just be telling yourself, no, I am good enough, I deserve to be here. It's not enough for you to just tell yourself that. You've also got to put in the action to make yourself worthy of it, which means in modeling, it means taking care of yourself, It means taking care of your skin, taking care of your hair, like going to the gym if that's what you need to do to kind of keep yourself in shape, eat the right foods. For you as a singer, it will be to constantly, do your voice exercises and training or whatever it is, practicing. If you play an instrument, then practicing every day to stay one step ahead of the competition all the time. Because, no matter how hard you're working, there's always going to be somebody who's working harder. And to be quite honest, there's also a lot of people in this industry who really aren't working hard enough, and there'll be a flash in the pan. They might come along and book a couple of jobs, and you'll be like, oh my god, they're going to take over. But unless you are really resilient, you're always going to be out the competition. The people who are the most successful in this game, and probably in your industry as well, are the ones who never give up and the ones who keep on going. Because you never know, success could be your biggest break could be just around the corner, and you wouldn't know, because you would just quit. You would just quit too early. And I've seen so many models do that. They've kind of worked the game for like 5 or 6 years. They made some money, and then they kind of gone, you know what? Like, I'm done now, like it's never going to happen. I'm never going to get that big campaign or that big contract or that cover that's going to change everything. And then they just quit. Like, I got my first Vogue cover at 28. That was after 6 years of modeling full time. you know. And so that just kind of tells me. And then I got Harper's Bazaar. I was on the cover of Harper's Bazaar. Was it last year? I think it was last year. No, just the year before. So it was like 18 months ago. So that's quite far into my career. A lot of people think, you hear these stories that, oh, so-and-so was discovered in a shopping centre with her mum, and then her first job was for Vogue, and blah, blah, blah. Like, I've spoken to some of these models that these stories get told about, and it's not true. A lot of these stories are not true. They make it sound like that because they want to sell you this dream. But actually, it isn't true. Like, they cut a lot of things out, You might be discovered in a shopping mall with your mum, but the full story might be that you got discovered by a model scout, and the model scout sent your pictures to the agency, and then the agency said no. And then after that, maybe you lost your confidence for like 6 months or a year, and then you thought, okay, I'm going to try this again. And then you got your mum to take some Polaroids off you, and you sent them to all the agencies, and then maybe you got signed. And then maybe it was 2 years of slog before you actually got your first big break. That's probably more like the real story, but they kind of just want to sell you this smoke and mirrors dream that it's just like you got discovered and now you're doing Prada exclusive. Like, a lot of these girls worked really, really hard. Like, this is why model scouts will usually scout models who are kind of 13, 14, because it takes that long for them to get comfortable in front of the camera and, develop their portfolios to look decent instead of just like a deer in headlights in their first portfolio pictures, which is how most new face models, because they don't know how to model. It takes a while, so that you're not going to send them to see Vogue straight away as soon as they've been scouted. You've got to send them out to some photographers first to get them comfortable, and then once they're 16, 17 and they've been modeling for a few years alongside school, then you go send them to see, the big, editors and photographers and stuff like that, once they're already kind of practiced and comfortable and know how to take a good photo. So yeah, you just got to keep believing in yourself. Another thing that I'm going to talk about when it comes to law of attraction is not just about action, but vibrational alignment is important. And they talk about this in The Secret, and it is true. You have to be happy. Like, you have to be happy whether it happens or not. You have to have an attitude of, and this is how I ended up manifesting my Vogue cover, because I came so close to it. Let me start. I don't even know. I've lost my train of thought. So I believed it was possible for me to get it. And the way that I believed it was possible was I looked at other models who had achieved it and who I thought were similar to me. So there was one model in particular, I don't want to say her name, but she is the same ethnicity as me. I'm South Asian. She's like we're both a South Asian British mix, and she's the same height as me and the same measurements. I'm not particularly tall as far as models go. I'm 5'8", which is kind of the minimum required for to get signed with agencies. There are models who are shorter than that, but they tend to work better in smaller markets. In markets like London, it can be quite hard if you're under 5'9", and some agencies, if you're under 5'9", they won't even really be that interested. So she was the same height as me, same measurements, which I'm not insanely skinny. Like, I mean, back then I kind of was, but by the time I booked Vogue, I wasn't a size 6 anymore. I was now like a size 8. I was a bit older and I filled out a little bit. And she had got she had 2 Vogue India covers. So I was just like, right, I think I could be on the cover of Vogue India. I can imagine myself doing that. I see no reason why I wouldn't. I just have to get to a place where I would be worthy of that. And at that point that I kind of wanted it, I wasn't at that place yet. So what do I have to do to get to that place? So I would buy copies of Vogue magazine, and I would look at them, and I would look at the editorials. What kind of content are they producing? What do the covers look like? How are they shot? How are they styled? What's the makeup like? And I would put together my own productions. So I would kind of go, this was again before Instagram, but there was Model Mayhem. Now Model Mayhem does have a lot of shit on there. Like, there's a lot of people who just frankly should not be in this business at all because they're not very good. But if you kind of sift through the chaff, you will get to some wheat. And there were some quite good creatives that I found on there who I collaborated with. And then of course I was also contacting really good photographers who were kind of published in magazines as well. So I was able to put together my own productions. And then I also, because I was at fashion college, I started doing my own styling as well. And I started talking to stylists on shoots, finding out how they get clothes, how they put together mood boards. I bought a book on fashion styling, and I learned how to do styling, because stylists were the most difficult creatives to get on board to collaborate with, to do portfolios. They were generally always busy working, because it's a lot of work doing styling. It's probably more work than the others. I mean, photography is also a lot of work, because there's a lot of like retouching that they need to do, but there's more photographers in the business. There's a lot of guys trying to get into the industry. They're mostly just guys with good camera who are, they have a full-time job and they just do things on the side. They do photography on the side, and they always want to shoot with models. So it was easy to get hold of photographers and makeup artists as well, but stylists was really difficult. So I just started to be my own stylist, and I started to put together my own shoots. And then off the back of that, I then signed with an agency in India. I got a really good agency in India. I got scouted actually by an international mother agent who was looking for models to take to India on placement. So when I went to India, because I'd worked so hard on my book, and my book was really strong by this point, I had all these editorials, all these tear sheets that I'd put together myself. Because if you wait for your agency to get you editorials and get you tear sheets, you might be waiting a long time, because you have to wait for these teams to choose you. But if you put together your own team and you put together your own mood board, then you've basically created leverage. And I do want to do a separate video on my YouTube where I talk about how to create leverage in, not just in this industry, but in any industry. Don't wait for people to choose you for projects. Don't wait for someone to pick you. Just start doing your own stuff, start doing your own projects, and you be the person to pick people to come on board to bring your vision to life, whatever it is. So by the time I got to India, my portfolio was really strong. I was quite different for the market as well, because I had short hair at the time. And somehow I just managed to get picked by, well, it's not somehow, it's because my portfolio was really strong. But I got chosen by this photographer who's now doing really super well over there. But at the time he was very up and coming, Bikram Bose. For a shoot that he was doing for Marie Claire, and then he recommended me to a stylist he knew at Grazia magazine, and then I booked Elle, and a lot of good magazines basically booked me to shoot their editorials that season. So my book was just amazing by the time I came back from India. Now, I didn't book Vogue while I was there, but I bridged the gap. I basically, because I'd already now worked for several of the good magazines. I hadn't worked for Harper's Bazaar, but I was closing that gap, and I realized that next time I go, maybe next time I'll get Vogue, and then from there, then maybe one day they'll choose me for the cover. That would be amazing. Now, my visa ran out, and then I had to come back to London, and the first thing that I did when I went back to London was apply for a new visa so that I could get back to India. And in the meantime, my mother agent, the one who'd scouted me, he proposed me to an agency in Bangkok. It was one of the top agencies, and he was just like, I showed them your portfolio, they love you, because by this time my portfolio was now amazing. I had Grazia and Elle, and all these really good editorials. It was a very kind of fashion focused book, and they signed me and they wanted me to go out there. So then I went out there. There were some problems when I got out there with my height, because they thought that I was going to be taller. But I can talk about that in another video. But because I'd been doing so much, by this point I'd gone even further with my spiritual journey. It wasn't so much about the law of attraction anymore. I'd now since had Kundalini awakening, and I'd read The Divine Matrix by Greg Braden, and I'd really started to understand even more now how your thoughts create your reality. Because in that book, Greg Braden basically talks about, he basically takes all the different scientific experiments that point to, that have looked at the nature of consciousness. So one of them was basically, they had a vacuum and they put human DNA in the vacuum, and what they found was that the electrons inside the, well, no, there weren't electrons inside the vacuum because it's a vacuum, but they found, you'd have to read the book, it was so long ago that I read it, but it was basically showing how human DNA actually can change the environment around you and it remains changed, and how your thoughts also change, how your emotional state can affect your DNA. They took a cheek sample from a person, and then they basically showed the person whose DNA it was different stimuli. So like they showed them like a video with like, you know, sad stuff and bad stuff and, you know, fucked up stuff and funny stuff, and then they basically recorded the responses in the person's DNA that was on their body. And then they also recorded the responses of the DNA from the cheek sample, which was somewhere else. It was in another room. And they measured the time that the response was happening on an atomic clock, which is down to the nanosecond. And they found that the DNA in the cheek sample was responding to the stimuli at exactly the same moment as the DNA in the person, which basically shows that your consciousness is not in your mind. It's basically like it's intrinsic in the DNA. You'd have to read the book, because the way that he puts the whole nature of your thoughts create your reality and they affect the world around you was just, for me, as somebody who was not spiritual, I was not spiritual at all. Like even after reading The Secret, I was still a little bit skeptical about it working. I mean, yeah, I'd managed to lose the weight and I was, you know, manifesting all this stuff. I didn't necessarily think that it was because of what I was doing in my head. I thought it was because of just the things that I was doing in the world. After reading that book and seeing all the scientific experiments kind of creating this picture of the divine matrix, which is what he calls it, it started to really shift my thinking. And then I've talked about in another video, which I'll link, about my Kundalini awakening. I had the Kundalini awakening, and after that I was just dove straight in and was just trying to learn as much as I could about the nature of reality and about truth. I mean, I'd been a truth seeker before that, because I'd kind of gone vegetarian, and then I kind of got involved in, I've already got some tea, thank you. I got involved in truth activism around the time that I started modelling as well. I was doing stuff with We Are Change, which talks about 9/11 truth. So I was kind of going to Trafalgar Square every week and handing out videos to people, you know, documentaries. Loose Change was one of them, Zeitgeist was another one, and I got really involved in all of this kind of anti-imperialism stuff. But I had to kind of take a step back from it, because I found that all the conspiracy theorists that I was hanging out with, they were I was just getting depressed. I was getting into a really low vibration, because every time I'd meet up with them, they would be going on about, you know, the government's doing this and the government's doing that, and now they're legislating, you know, natural remedies and things like that, and what are we going to do? And it was all about, you know, let's stick it to the man, and it was not helping me. It was not serving me. So I took a step back from it, and I was just like, I can't deal with this right now. I just need to focus on myself and my career. And I remember some of those people were actually quite instrumental in the, you know, when they did the not Occupy Wall Street, but Occupy Parliament. Yeah, where they had the camp outside, I think, St. Paul's Cathedral. It originally started in Parliament Square, and the people that were camping in Parliament Square, they were all the people that I was doing activism with. back in 2007. And I remember I was doing a presenting job one day in London, you know, and I had like a film crew with me, and I was just walking through it, and we passed the camp, and they were like, oh yeah, all these crusty hippies. And I saw one of the guys, and I was like, oh, Gareth, hey. And he saw me, and he was like, hey, Sundar. And it was just, I basically saw at that moment the trajectory that, you know, I'd gone down, that I could have been there, but I'd kind of gone this way and decided that I was going to kind of do things for me. So yeah, so even though I'd always been a truth seeker, I didn't think that there was any truth outside of this material, physical reality. I didn't realize that there were other planes of causation. I didn't realize that there is something called spirit that we, you know, is beyond human comprehension. I wasn't religious, you know, I just was just very left brain, you know, very skeptical, and just thought that this was it. And so ever since then, I really started to go down that path. And so by the time I got to Thailand, modeling was just kind of, it was cool that everything was kind of coming to me, and I'd signed with this really good agency, and I was going to all these castings, but I'd completely released attachment to it. I didn't really care anymore. I wasn't so hungry for it anymore. Like I'd been very ambitious up until this point, but by this point I was just like, it's cool, like everything that happens is now just a bonus. And that's when it all started to come to me. That's when it really started to come to me. That's when I started to do really well. I started booking loads. I was booking 2-3 jobs a week, making good money. And in Thailand, like the cost of living is very low, and the money that you can make as a model is decent. So, you know, for me, I was like living the life, and I was seeing all these models around me who were amazing models, but who weren't booking work because their mindset wasn't right, or they were having disputes with their agency, they were homeless and this and that. They couldn't afford to come and hang out with us. Like, we wanted to go do touristy things and go to the islands, and they just couldn't come with us because they didn't have money. And that's when I really started to, instead of being like competitive and wanting, you know, every job, you know, that was out there, you know, to be mine and to have more than other people, that's when I was just like, you know what, I'm so happy, like, with everything that I have. I'm so grateful. I had so much gratitude for everything that was coming to me, and I just want everybody else to have what I have. Like, I want everybody else to also have enough, so that, because that's in the greatest good. Like, I'll be happy when my friends are happy, when we can all hang out and go and do fun things together. And it was having that attitude that then I start, you know, and I was having, you know, I was going out, I was partying a lot. And I feel like when you're in that vibrational state where you're doing what you love and what makes you happy, when you go into castings and they ask you, hey, how's it going? What are you up to? You're like, I'm great. I'm having a great time. I've been so busy. We've been doing this. We've been doing that. And so you just book jobs. They're like, this girl looks fun. Like, she looks like she's great to work with. We want her. We want her on set. And it's the same thing with anything that you're trying to manifest. If you're happy, if you're vibrating high, people are going to want to be around you. Like, or if you're vibrating low, then, you know, the opportunities that are going to come your way are going to be low vibrational opportunities. Like, you're going to, if you're coming from a lack-based place, you're going to just attract people who are also coming from that place. They don't want to pay you because they don't have enough money, because they think that, you know, resources are finite when they're not. You know, everything is abundant. We live in an abundant universe. Money is just another form of energy. It's infinite. Anybody who studied the financial system and the Federal Reserve and fiat currency knows that they literally, like, they invent money out of thin air. They just type it into a computer. It's infinite. It doesn't exist in nature. And if the bankers can create it as an infinite resource to do exactly what they want to do, so can you. Like, really, so can you. And as soon as you believe it, your thinking around it will shift. And it's not always easy to do. Believe me, I doubt it myself. And whenever I doubt it, that's when I come into abundance blocks. And that's when I get broke, you know. That's when my money starts running out, because I start to think that it's not coming to me. But it's also about the energy that you're putting out into the universe. So if you're putting energy out into the universe and you're providing value to people, and you know your worth, it has to be those two things. You're providing value and you know your worth, and you charge what you're worth, it will move through you, because you're a conduit for it. And it's the same with everything. That's how you manifest anything. You just provide value, and whatever it is that you need to do, whatever it is that you're doing in the world, the service that you're providing, it will come to you because it serves the universe. You know, when you're in alignment with universal law and you're providing value to people, then the universe conspires to give you what you want. Okay, I'm going to leave it there because I feel like I've rambled and I've jumped around, and you know, I hope I didn't jump around too much and that you guys were able to follow what I was saying. If you have any questions, please ask me the questions in the comment box below. Share this video if you think it could be useful for people who want to get into my industry or who are trying to manifest things in their life. Feel free to suggest more videos if you want to if you want me to do a specific video about something, then excuse me then feel free to suggest it. Subscribe, hit the notification bell as well so that you can get all my video updates, because I'm trying to do one update a week at the moment, and so far I've managed to stick to that, so I can keep that sort of momentum going. And follow me on Instagram, it's at Ishtar the Moon. Love you all, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.
You're introduced to LSD, and unless you've taken some other drug, like for instance, like marijuana or something, well, you know, it's an altogether new thing, and you actually can have a religious experience